And we are live with the weekly wrap up. We got two of the 8 black hands, me, Citizen Stewart from Twitter, and Ray Ankrum. I don't know from what.
Yo, I'm about to get me a crafty Twitter name.
You got to get yourself a crafty Twitter. You could be
maybe like a Citizen. You know, like Sway
Citizen Ankrum. Yeah, you know.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, why Sway? Why Sway?
What's up, bro?
Man,
yeah, the week.
Yeah, it's been wild, man. It's been a wild week. I've actually been broadcasting all week. So shout out to all of our friends that have been broadcasting. COVID has not stopped the voice of education activism. So we have the Powerful Parent Network. Today they're going to do a show at 3:30 Eastern time, I think. Look up Powerful Parent Network on Facebook for the exact time and details. But shout out to Sarah Carpenter and to that whole group. Shout out to Kerry Rodriguez and the Parents Union. Man, they've been broadcasting like 3-4 times a day. They're like the CNN of this stuff.
Yeah, man. And they're making a lot of views too.
I know they're doing it in Spanish.
Yeah.
They have a special education podcast or broadcast, whatever. Parent to parent. It's multicultural, multiracial, and it's hosting. I love it.
I think I seen Tim do a dad.
John. No, stop.
Not did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Tim did. I'm gonna give Tim a hard time. You know, that's one of the things that came up in our discussion this week is black parenting, black male parenting, black fathers. Where are they in these discussions and these debates? We talk about these like education. We actually talk about it in a way that feels very feminized. I don't know. What do we do about that? We get the black male parent voice back in the game. So
black parents' voices are stifled. We look at things from a hierarchy of the white middle class. So when you think about anything,
hierarchy,
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Hierarchy, tomato. Don't do that to me, bro.
I'm just asking.
All right. So you look at things from a hierarchy of the white middle class, and so a lot of black parents that don't fit into that scheme, their voices are silenced.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, one of the big things for me is to make sure that my research kind of highlights those voices that are not necessarily being heard because they're not white middle class, because they're discounted and they shouldn't be.
What we do though, I mean, you just said it's something relational to the white middle class, but you know, I don't think any of our, you know, black middle class, anybody, I just don't think we concentrate on black fathers in these discussions.
No, not at all.
No,
not at all. But I think a lot of, I mean, because of everything that's happening with the black family, dating back to, I want to say maybe late 80s, early 90s. And I don't want to use your man's word, but
which man?
Don't
Cole. You say it. Oh, Cole. Charles. Okay. Yeah. What's his word?
But the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
And so, you know, by penalizing cocaine the way that it was, that took away from a lot of, you know, black men being involved in family.
Mm.
And so, you know, now you see the whole aspect of drugs, and it's not as criminalized. It's more like, all right, it's more reformy in terms of like, all right, let me get you some help. Let me not put you in jail. But it wasn't always that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we are rebounding from the era of crack. Yeah.
Okay, so crack been gone a long time now. It's 2000.
Yeah, a whole hell of a long time. But you also got to look
30 years ago. That's 3 decades ago. I mean, damn. I tell Charles this all the time. Charles is still on that crack stuff, man. And I'm like, no, let me take that back. He's not literally on the crack.
Hey, with some of the shit he be saying, who knows?
Yeah. I just want to be clear about this. He's not literally on crack.
Yeah.
But he talks about crack as if it didn't happen that long ago. But it's been 3 decades, man. There's some other stuff.
Yeah, but you're falling into that trap, right? And that's the whole. I mean, the whole how long things happen. You know, how long ago things happened, right? Because I mean, Brown versus Ward, technically, if you look at how long ago that was, like it was a long time ago. But in the whole scheme of things, in terms of how things have changed in education, it really wasn't that long ago.
Mm. Yeah, but it was that long ago. I mean, it really was. It was like 5 decades ago. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, are people who are still talking about Brown versus Board of Education? To me, it's kind of like talking about disco. It's like, yeah, I get it. The impact on music. I remember, Donna Summers, all that, but it's gone now.
I
It's
knew
gone
you
now.
was gonna say, I knew you was gonna say Donna Summers.
I
I
know
knew
that.
it.
Well, listen, here's the point that I'm making. So when I say Black fathers are missing in the debate, not like we are literally missing, but we're invisible to the debate. People talk about education in a very feminized way, and definitely of all the fathers, Black fathers are like treated as we're some sort of unicorns or something. But even when you say something about like, oh yeah, but the crack epidemic, as if we all was on crack. Right. Why when you talk about Black men, Black people, Black families, Black whatever, it always goes immediately to the worst.
Yeah.
Like to the worst of us. Right. Like, so you can never talk about us in terms of the intact families, the intact Black families, the Black families that are not together, husband and wife, they're not together anymore, but they co-parent, cohabitating Black parents.
Yeah.
Never been married, but they exist.
I mean, they exist, but like you said, they're like unicorns. We don't see that shit. Like we only see the visions that the media portrays, and we only see the visions that we are exposed to in terms of our families and stuff. Like, man, I like growing up, Bill Cosby was dad for a lot of people.
That's true.
Unfortunately, right? I mean, not unfortunate in the sense of like, who the hell knew he was doing what he was doing in the 70s or whatever? Like, that nobody knew that. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the impact that he had on Black America, while that show was running in the 80s, that was the only positive imagery that we had. Mm-hmm. I mean, like later on, you had maybe Carl Winslow, who's underrated, and you had.
Now let's exercise this. I feel like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a positive story.
I was gonna say him next. Yeah, Uncle Phil, absolutely.
Okay. Uncle Phil was the bomb.
Category. Yeah. But Carl Winslow is underrated.
Who's Carl Winslow? Who is
from
that?
Family Matters?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Family Matters. I mean, I couldn't take what was the little dude's name? I couldn't take him. I couldn't take Urkel.
He raised Urkel. I have never seen Urkel's mother. Never seen Urkel's.
Yeah, you know what? Now, see, you're hitting on something important, because in the Cosby Show, they had people that they pseudo adopted. They became the family that took other people in. Family Matters took Urkel in. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You messing up in Philly, we're gonna send you out to California to live with your uncle. Who's
in his defense, anybody would mess up in Philly, bro.
You're trying to get on Sharif's bad side right now. That's what you're trying to do. So it feels like we're hitting an uphill battle then. Like if you wanted a positive depiction of Black fathers, whether they're married or not, whether they're employed or not, whether they're whatever, if you live in a Black world and a Black life, you see positive behavior in Black men and Black fathers all the time, but you don't see it in the popular characterization of who we are. Right.
Yeah.
Nikki Frost, thank you for the comment. She says different strokes.
He wasn't Black.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, Nikki, tell me more. Because so it was a Black housekeeper's children. She died, and her employer adopted the 2 sons. That was a setup, right?
Which was admirable for him.
Yeah. Actually, to tell you the truth, just to be real, I used to love different strokes, and I really had fantasies of being adopted away from my family, right? By rich white people in New York or something, wherever they were supposed to be, with like all the, they had all the toys in the world and everything. I was like, it made you look around at your own parents, and be like, you need to up your game.
My favorite character on that show was Dudley.
Yeah, Dudley.
Yeah, because Dudley had a working family. That was Arnold's homeboy.
I don't remember that. I do remember Janet Jackson.
You can't forget her.
Yeah, I remember on that, and I remember even on Good Times. You had positive portrayal. Okay, now let's just leave aside for a moment
what was the positive?
Okay, so let's deal with the negative portrayal first. It happens in the ghetto, right? And John Amos, who was the dad on that show, said that the reason that he left the show was because he was getting tired of the stereotypical portrayal that Norman Lear was writing into that show. But they were an intact family. They went through the struggles together. The father had, he did his business. The mother did her business. They fought with each other all the time. The kids did and whatnot, but they had each other's back at the end of the day. So you're talking about an intact family, even though it happened in the Chicago ghetto, in the projects. I imagine it was Cabrini Green or something like that. But it's still positive.
Yeah.
It's still positive. We don't talk about anything, though, right now in education. All this stuff you and I talk about all the time, that has to do with Black fathers or Black fathering.
Going back to good times, man. It seemed like every damn episode, John was about to stroke out.
He did. Didn't he die eventually with the stroke?
I feel like when they killed him off the show, I think it might have been a stroke. Because I know he had high blood pressure, and I don't necessarily think it was from how she was cooking, because it looked like she cooked as healthy as she could. She was a stable Black woman in that show. Maybe
I'm being old and nostalgic in a way, but and maybe I just don't watch enough TV right now. But I know for a fact I don't see like then you had the Jeffersons. You had a strong Black father who was an entrepreneur, right? He couldn't be fired. He had his own business. James Evans was a blue collar worker. I think he was even a union member on that show. Yeah. And positive portrayal, even though it was in the ghetto. So you had a range, but right now I think it's missing. And I think, to be very honest with you, people believe in the single mom narrative as if we're invisible. And I think research has shown that it's just not true in the way that people say. Darren Beck says he died of a heart attack. It was a question mark. I know it was the heart.
Yo, D-Beck, do some research real quick, man. You got to give us some facts. You can't put that in there with a question. Shout out to D-Beck, man. That's the homie right
there. You mentioned Bill Cosby. I think Fat Albert was positive in a way, but again, in the junkyard, right? I think Sanford and Son was positive to some extent. Again, in the junkyard.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
You don't think so?
You don't think so? Okay. Sanford and Son positive, bro.
You big dummy.
Bro. Like he had to, man. You have your son growing up with a complex, chasing his aunt off, cursing your friends out all the time.
Okay, look, Dia done did the thing. Dia says D.H. Hewley show. Yes, check. And she said Blackish.
No.
And
Blackish is
Blackish is smart.
Yeah.
It's smart. I haven't watched the mixes. What is it? And Grownish, but Blackish is smart.
I can't get with Blackish, bro.
Why?
And I think it's because of
because they have jobs?
Because of the star of the show. No.
Because he's got a professional job and she's a doctor. What's wrong with you?
What's his name? What is his name?
Anthony Hamilton? No, not Anthony Hamilton.
No. Anthony Hamilton.
Michael something? Yeah. Anthony Hamilton is the barefoot R&B singer.
Yeah. He can sing though, but
he could. He better can sing. He's from the South and he looks like he came out of Roots.
Oh my God, so you do it. But the reason why I don't like the show is because that guy who came in who's the star of that show, he messed up Law and Order. Remember, he had the 2 seasons of Law and Order, and he was trash.
I do not remember detective. That. Why are you watching Law and Order? Talk about a show that doesn't depict us the right way. Dia Jones says Fred Sanford was the man. He loved Lamont. See? Now, I can't remember what happened to the mother. I think she passed away. But even
Elizabeth?
Aunt, Elizabeth,
she passed away in St. Louis.
She passed away, yes. Mm-hmm. So it was a father, son, entrepreneurial again, right? Like George Jefferson. Anthony Anderson, that's what Dia says.
Yeah,
is the guy that we're talking about.
The upsell. So basically, you got Lamont going out working all day while Fred was in the house chilling. Right. Even though he probably should have been retired or whatever.
He was kind of retired. What you talking about, man?
The upsell on the products, bro. Like, I mean, I know you in Watts, but God damn, you up and marking things up 65-70%. He was racist as hell. Think about how he talked to Julio.
Who was racist?
Think about how he was xenophobic.
Okay, whatever. Was he? Was he really though?
Lamont's friend True. He always went after Lamont's friend True.
You sound
Man,
college
don't
educated now. You need to
man.
stop.
I analyze these shows.
Yeah, your college degrees are coming out now. You know what? I forgot about what's happening and what's happening now. You remember that?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
father was gone in that show. Father was gone.
Yeah.
They were being raised by their mother. I mean, listen, bringing it back to education, I do think that every morning there's more Black fathers showing up for their kids than ever gets noticed or recognized.
Yeah.
I do feel like our voice is a little bit absent from the overall discussion, as if we have no
we do
ownership
that
of
to
our kids.
ourselves, though. We do that to ourselves. How many Black men that are like, oh, my wife handles everything with education?
Yeah, okay. There's that. There is like research that says even in relationships, women, the mothers, make the majority of educational decisions, right? But that doesn't take away from Black fathering and fatherhood, like the influence of a Black male on their child, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because there's other things you're teaching your child, like respect your mom.
Of course.
Or you got me to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And kids will test that.
Yeah.
So that means it's good to have a father around. I actually just think it's a little bit of chauvinism and racism in the educational apparatus.
But then that goes into that thing that you want to talk, that we want to talk about on the show, but we are never going to talk about on the show, that we probably should talk about.
What's that?
Is what is it? Female toxicity?
Toxic femininity.
Yeah, toxic femininity. Yeah, yes.
I mean, people get mad at us. They'll get mad as we talk about this, just so you know.
Yeah, but it exists though.
I mean, they'll cancel
it.
And
like there's daily portrayals of how this exists in our society, bro.
Yeah.
And by not talking about it and us not speaking about it, we're doing a disservice to those kids that are being raised in those environments, in those toxic ass environments, number one. And number two, we're doing a disservice to those Black males that are going through it, right? Because child support.
Example of it. So if someone was listening and they said, someone said, "What are you talking about? Toxic femininity." What would you say? What's an example of it? Yeah.
Okay, so an example of it was I guess we saw a video, or it was a video on YouTube. A whole genre of videos probably on YouTube that discussed this topic. But one in particular was I think a man had partial custody of his little daughter, right? He gets her for the weekend.
Don't say it. I know what you're going.
I know
he
gets her for the weekend.
Yep.
He gets braids done to her hair, right? Gets the little girl her beads. She's coming. She's walking. You see her. It's positive. She's shaking her beads. She's happy about her hairdo, right? The mom sees it and immediately is like, "You're not going to let no other woman touch my daughter's hair." Goes in the house, gets scissors, and cuts the beads out of the little girl's hair. What the little girl do for her to deserve that?
I mean,
and the dad is videoing it because he's videoing it probably to keep his hands from being free from wanting to put his hands on this woman, because you just did this in front of my daughter like this. Man, that's not okay, man. And we don't talk about this. Like, we're doing a disservice to the Black community by not talking about this particular topic.
I think it comes up from time to time, but almost no one calls it toxic femininity. I just don't think it's politically correct to say that. I definitely think it's politically in vogue and okay. I mean, I think part of it is, feminism would prevent you from talking about toxic femininity as a thing. You would talk about the societal factors that drive the mothers in those situations to do the things that they're doing. When it comes to males, you don't have the same feminism applied to their situation. So the stuff that they do that would be called toxic masculinity is not attributed to their life, their circumstances, and all that. It's attributed to something masculine. It's about the masculinity, right? Yeah. And there's no such thing as a masculinist, right? Like, we have feminists, but we don't have a masculinist, right? Right? We possibly should, right? Because
probably.
Because in a way, we're taking on the idea that one of our immutable characteristics is universally bad. Like, masculinity is like so you wake up every day as a man thinking, okay, I got like an original sin. I'm a male, right?
Yeah.
That can't last forever. you know,
bro. Being healthy, shit, that can't last. You're subjecting yourself. You're already. So I talk about this all the time. You're already predisposed to a lot of different things in terms of like just what we have to deal with as Black people in general. So then you're doubling that with this toxic stress that you have to go through, right? And it's like Black men want to be involved in the lives of their kids. But when it comes down to this kind of toxicity, it's like you got to say to yourself, it's like you're choosing now. Now you're forced to choose. It's like, all right, do I want to deal with this toxic ass woman, or do I want to deal with my kid? And a lot of times we get pigeonholed by saying, all right, well, you abandon your kid, but no, you didn't abandon your kid. You abandoned the toxicity that was associated with having to raise your child. And so now, when the kid gets 18, you got to rebuild this kid who is now grown up with daddy issues or whatever. And it's like, now hopefully, God willing, you're able to rebuild a relationship that you don't have with this kid due to the fact that you weren't willing to deal in the toxicity that was associated with being a parent.
Yeah, we got some that's very real. And I don't think we talk about how men feel in those situations, their egos and their feelings about their self-concepts when you have the law or judges or other people get involved in your situation to just tell you what you can't do. You can't be your kid. You can't be involved. But we got some I think some pretty pointed conversation here happening. So Redefined Renee says these tough conversations need to be held. We always hear about toxic masculinity, but femininity being toxic hasn't been addressed. Thank you for bringing it up. See, Redefined Renee is trying to get us in trouble here. Nikki Frost says, as a community and a people, I agree with toxicity. However, I don't see it as a feminine issue, but more as a familial issue. I say this because each family member has been affected by society and factors. And I agree with Nikki, except to say that we are open to talking about toxic masculinity endlessly.
Yes.
We're not able to talk about this other stuff.
See, and that's the problem that I have with it. Nikki, shout out to you for bringing it up. But man, like we were talking about this till the cows come home, right? And everybody has a story that's associated with the fact that Black men ain't shit, right? But then flip the narrative. Flip the narrative. And then you let Black men have a voice. You let Black men speak as to why they make the choices and the selections that they do. And then all of a sudden you got to mute them. You got to take their mic away because we don't want to hear about Black females having any kind of bad associated with them. We don't want to hear it. We can't hear it. Can't take it.
There's a Black woman on Facebook, and I'm going to forget her name right now. But if anybody listening or watching knows it, please put it in the comments. Or if you want to know more about it, contact me later and I'll find out. But she runs a campaign in an organization that's just based around no spanking. It's like a no spanking campaign for Black people.
Yeah, that's
and
that ain't gonna work.
it's a tough discussion. I didn't know that this discussion would be as tough as it actually is, but she has a whole nonprofit around fighting spanking as a thing.
Don't tell me what that is. I'm not donating to that. I don't believe in that.
What do you mean you don't believe?
You spare a ride, spoil a child. You know that.
Oh Lord, I'm gonna have to get Sharif on here. He's gonna be after you.
Yo, listen. If you go to Reef's feed, I talk to him religiously about calling CPS on him. Child Protective Services, because I don't like the way he raising his children.
But you shouldn't even joke about that. But anyways, the reason I bring up this beating situation and scenario, I don't know where people land on it. I think if you're more old school, you probably have less of a problem with it. If you're more new school, you probably have ideas that this could damage kids, damage their self-concept. But I bring it up because here's another tough conversation that we don't really talk about often is oftentimes a Black male is being raised in the care of a Black woman for whatever reason. Even if the dad is involved, you might spend the majority of your time with the Black woman. And if you are in a household where you're going to get beat as one of the punishments that you get, it's going to come at the hands of a woman, right?
Yeah.
So you have a woman beating a Black male while he's in the development of himself as a Black male, as a Black man. And then you wonder at a certain point when he starts becoming like when the switch flips, when he's no longer beatable, like you can't beat him no more, and now he's a man or he's a half a man, he's 16, he's 17 years old, and you ain't about to beat him no more.
Yeah.
And then he gets in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
With a woman.
Oh,
what
man.
role does he play once he gets in that relationship?
I can tell you from personal experience what role I played. And so, this is personal to me because I was about 14 years old. My mom had hit me with a broom. I took the broom and I broke that shit. And I was like, oh, you're not going to hit me no more. Like, it's done. That's a wrap. We're not even having this conversation no more or whatever. If you want to punish me, you want to ground me, you want to think of more conventional ways in order to make my life miserable, you go ahead, you do you. And I understand as a parent, I accept and embrace the fact that that's something that you're going to do. But in terms of you physically putting your hands on me, you're not putting your hands on me no more. That's over, right? And when I started to have relationships,
what age was that? What age do you think that was?
That was 14 for me.
Yeah, it happened for me about 15. Same age.
And
when
so
you cross over, like you feel yourself at that point. You're like, wait a second. Oh hell no. This is not what we're doing. You're
not gonna be putting your hands on me like this.
Yeah.
But so what I realize is this: a lot of parents that do that and that exhibit that kind of behavior is because that was what was done to them. So my mom used to get the hell beat out of her, bro. She had a horrible upbringing. And so, for her, it was more so like, I'm only doing to you what was done to me because, and then but her new saying now is, when you know better, you do better.
Right.
And so I'm like, what the fuck was you thinking when I was 14? You wouldn't.
She say the thing about like, this is going to hurt you more than it's going to, or hurt me more than it's going to hurt you.
I caught one of them before too.
Are you kidding me?
My dad was like,
gonna hurt.
My dad,
please.
Yeah, my dad was absent. My dad was absentee in my life. But the one time when he was around, I had dropped a hot dog, and man, he slapped the shit out of me.
For dropping a hot dog?
Maybe it was because the dog. I think the dog might have ate it, or whatever. I don't know. I love my dog. So man, he slapped the shit out of me, but then what ensued was the conversation, because like I feel like when you put your hands on a child, if it's not followed with a conversation as to why this occurred, what we can do to prevent this from ever occurring again, and it's just me putting my hands on you out of anger, then you can't really work from there. But I feel like there's a lot of things that can happen if you're having a conversation about the why, right? Like, this is why I put my hands on you. And whatever. Not saying that is right, not saying that is wrong, because you're gonna raise your kids however you're gonna raise your kids. And I don't feel like I'm in a position to tell people how they're gonna raise their kids, because I always say you're the expert of your child. So what punishment you can ensue upon your child that's gonna get the best reaction from your child.
Yeah, I think listen, I know we laugh about timeouts a lot, like, timeouts is what them other people doing, blah blah. I tell you this much: boredom will kill my kids. Like being bored, making them bored, like taking everything away. Like, no, you just sit in silence. You're just gonna be a young man with your thoughts right now. Listen, that's worse than an ass whooping. Dia Jones says, we can go mad deep. Let's talk about how we raise Black men not to talk about their emotions. Don't cry, brush it off, fight it out. Something we always say, walk it off, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Redefined, Renee says, that's why it's so important to communicate with the child about what they did bring forth the whooping. It's important to have the conversation so they can correct the behavior and learn to use their words to solve problems. Now, I don't know if Redefined, Renee is saying that communication is supposed to be happening before you whoop somebody's ass, or maybe we were whooping somebody's ass, right? Like, because listen, when I got ass whooping, I didn't want a big conversation about it. Like, I'm just like, everything you're saying right now is going to lead to me getting an ass whooping. So let's get this over with, right? Like, that's how I felt. Like, this is all good. We having this Cosby moment. Let's talk about the reason I'm about to beat your ass, but come on, listen, let's get this over with. Let's get to the part where I cry, I'm done. I walk away, I'm pissed off. I hate you for 24 hours. And that's that,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Dia makes a good point. She says, when we can go mad deep. Let's talk about how we raise Black men and not talk about their emotions. Don't cry, brush it off. You just read this. Fight it out.
Fight it out.
And then when you need to talk about it with their girlfriend, wife, baby mama, they're not prepared. Well, I'm raising my son different. He sees me cry all the time. and it's like a badge of honor for me to, because I feel like growing up with my uncles,
Yeah.
my uncles raised me. It was kind of like one of those things where, like, if you cry, you weak.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm definitely not raising my son that way. If you cry, it makes you strong, because that means that you're releasing something. Like, when you cry, you're releasing a form of energy, a form of negativity that's going to make you into a better man. That's going to make you be a better father. And so every time I have conversations with my son, I always circle back and I'm like, bro, is this how you want to raise your kid?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like,
that's a good point right there. A good point might be, how do I want my grandchildren to be treated? Because what I'm doing right now is how my grandchildren are going to be treated. Now I'm at an age where I think about grandchildren, like being a possibility at some point. It's a very real possibility in my life. And my grandparents were amazing. They were fantastic. And if I could be anything, it would be my grandparents. In my life, I actually, like, my parents had different stuff going on, different times. But I'll tell you who saved the day in my life: aunties, uncles, and grandparents. Like, save the day. Like, and especially aunties. I got one aunt that loved me something fierce. And the thing that I knew about this particular aunt, and I lived with her for a while, was that nobody could touch me when I was in her care.
Yeah.
Not my mother, not my father, nobody. So this was the aunt. This was the aunt of all aunts, right? Yeah. and that saved me a lot of situations. But whatever you do to a child, I think is going to carry over into the next generation, right? So beating, I think, goes into the next generation. And ask yourself, do you want to die knowing your grandchildren are going to get beat as a punishment?
Yeah, that's true. I never even thought about it like that. Well, my uncles, how you had the good aunt. Well, I had the horrible uncles. All of them was terrible.
Really?
And so, but yeah, man, like, physically assaulting me, like all kinds of things and whatnot. But in their minds, they felt justified, because they're like, oh, we're gonna teach you how to be a man, and that's their way, because that's how they were brought up. They were brought up
making the case for toxic masculinity again.
Yeah, but many of them didn't have. They grew up with their mom.
Right.
She was toxic as fuck.
Right.
My grandmother was toxic. Nobody wants to talk about that. Like, that's like an omen in my family, and I'm the only one that grew up with her. So, like, I'm the only one that really knows how she was, in terms of, like, how she crippled them, doing everything for them, which enabled them to be able to do anything for themselves. Right.
Talking about toxic femininity can be like a novel, like, topic.
Yeah.
Conversation, or a little bit controversial, whatever what you want to call it. But does it advance anything if we do it?
It does. It does if the people on the receiving end of hearing it are receptive and open to the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Because they expect us, when we hear toxic masculinity and when we hear examples of this toxicity, for us to change our ways, for us to change our behaviors, for us to fall into the paradigm to make us be less toxic. And so if they're not willing to do the same thing, they're not willing to be open-minded in terms of having these tough conversations, because this is a tough conversation. Because now you're talking to a woman who may have been left by a man, and now that child looks exactly like that man who left her. And so even though this is her baby that came out of her womb, she low-key hates this kid because he looks like the dad.
Yeah. I also feel like if you're that mother, there's something to the idea that you're trying to prepare them for the real world, and you want them to be tough enough for the real world, right? I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I'm just saying it is a thing where you're thinking about, am I preparing them for the life that I've seen that's been harsh? So you might be a little bit more harsh, not because you're trying to be mean or toxic, but because you think it's a form of love. Like that, like preparing you for a harsh world is a form of love. So me toughening you up and all that stuff is not really out of toxicity, but I'm still wondering, like if any of this discussion is positive: toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, putting attributes on people just because of their gender as a universal bad. I don't know if that gets us anywhere. I really don't.
Right. All right, so Niki's hot. She's on fire. Who is this Niki?
I have no idea. She's doing it though, isn't she?
Right. She said, no one can deny you this right if you actually fight for it. No court will deny you as a man to see your child. Well, Nikki, that's the first place where we disagree.
I was about to say,
this court system is not built for men, period. Especially not black men. So if you go in that court and you trying to fight for custody, first of all, you're not getting custody, right? Like that custody is for a female and a female only. I don't give a shit what state you're in. The second thing is you better not have no other kids. Because if you got other kids, that court system does not give a shit about how you provide for those other kids. Because the first person that took you to court is the first person that's leaving with a handsome ransom. You hear me? A handsome ransom. And so if you were in a relationship with a person, then that's one thing. Because maybe they saw this lifestyle that you were able to afford or whatever, and they were a part of that lifestyle, and it was a dual partnership. But if you were never in a relationship with someone, and now you must provide them with a lifestyle that they would never have or never be accustomed to because of the fact that they now have a child for you, that's bullshit.
And whether you agree or not with it, if you were to fill this conversation with men, who have had situations with, family situations with the mother of their child, and it got legal at some point, you would just hear a range of stories that would change this discussion and this debate, whether you agree with it or not. Right?
I'm trying to tell you.
And you would hear a whole bunch of unresolved stuff.
Yes.
Right? Anger, hostility, everything else. Nikki says she's Sharif's friend from college. So we should have got Sharif on here too.
Nikki, where you at? Hey, Reed was running around here spreading rumors, talking about the brothers of Omega Sci-Fi recruited him when he was at IUP.
They tried to recruit him.
With the three other black people that were there. Can you confirm or deny if the brothers of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated tried to recruit Sharif? Can you confirm or deny?
And she is an educator, Nikki Pittsburgh, and I am an educator. Do you think maybe when we talk about toxic femininity, it's going to be taken by people as just being a response to toxic masculinity? Just a response like a cheap shot wanting to just come back. It's not a real thing.
Nah, this is a real thing, bro. How
do you know?
But I can see how.
Example. What's another example? You gave one example.
So the other example is the court system. So I mean, like you don't walk it, man. So I've seen some really dangerous things in terms of how this court system interacts with black males, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, I was involved in an interstate child support case in which I was in another state. My daughter's mother was in another state. I had to show up in person. She could call in by phone. I had to inconvenience my life, disrupt my life in order to be there in person to defend my name, defend my humanity. She was on the phone. She then was able to purposely not work in order to lower the threshold of her income so that she would get more money, right? And so then the state comes in on the other end of that, gives her SNAP, gives her all these benefits or whatever. Meanwhile, she defended her dissertation. She's a doctor. So I'm going in this court and I'm like, what the? She has income capability. Well, you got to prove that. Why the fuck do I have to prove anything? She's a doctor or something.
I hope you didn't talk like this in court.
No. But what the mistake that I made was that was when I was a social studies teacher, and I thought to myself, I'm like, yo, what's the next best thing to being a lawyer? Being a social studies teacher, right? That's the thing we run with.
Okay,
in the land of social studies. But I should have got me a lawyer. Right, that was my mistake. I should have came out my pocket and got me an attorney because these court systems deal better when attorneys speak for you for whatever reason.
So I'm gonna say this much: I don't know that that's about her being toxic. I think that's about the system, the way the system is set up. If she wants to be toxic, then that system can
it allows her
and amplifies it. But I don't know that that's so. We might be stepping over something here too. Okay. We wanted to say that there's such thing as a toxic. First of all, we wanted to say there's a such thing as a present Black father, and that they're invisible in this debate, and that we are not paying enough attention to Black men in this debate. And we're assuming, and we have a default assumption of a Black mom as parent in the lives of children. And that is stopping us from having a good discussion on education. That goes into also, though, where do Black males come from? What's their social training, their home training? Many of them being raised by a woman, a mom, and that there could be toxic situations in their childhood that come from that we could reasonably call, say, fall into toxic femininity as a thing. But when I said sidestep, here's what I think we might sidestep, though. Okay, so what if, when we do talk about toxic masculinity, right, that includes things like homophobia, transphobia, and over.
You just said the T word.
I mean, all the phobias, all of the need to overdo it on how masculine you are, the gang culture, the world star hip hop culture, don't even, I'm the one on the podcast that always gets in trouble for talking about hip hop, what it's teaching people about gender relationships. And I hear people come back at me all the time. Like I have a person in my life. I'm not going to name this person. There's a good chance that she will be listening to this and will listen to a lot of what we do, who will always be the first to call out toxic masculinity as a thing. And she's woke, right? She's got all the woke, things, and she's educated, and she's been to college and all that stuff. And she's been to college a couple of times for different degrees. So she's smart. So I actually should just, bow down to that. But even though she has all that wokeness going on, there's a hip hop person here or there that she really likes. And if you listen to the album, it's full of homophobia and sexism and whatnot. And in that case, it'll be like, yeah, but I like the beat. Right. Right. Yeah, it's a little bit homophobic, but it's got a good beat. I could dance to it. And I find that confusing. That we won't have an honest discussion about how the dominant art form in our culture is transmitting all the wrong messages to both girls and boys.
Yeah.
And I can't bring it up. Every time we bring it up on 8 Black Hands, I'm not gonna let you do that with hip hop. There's positive hip hop, and I'll be like, who? Everybody comes back to Common. There's always Common, right? Well, there's Common, and then there's Common, and but it's not the dominant message that's being sent out to boys and girls about gender relationships. Yeah. Let's see what Nikki has to say. Are you sure that she got all the money, or did the money you paid portion back to the state? They will not allow her to profit and collect relief from the state without taking some. So this is the point about whatever you're paying as a father in child support. Don't feel like that entire thing is actually landing in your child's life.
Oh, it's Nikki. Thanks for that question. It probably didn't, but I always felt like, I felt like I was paying a rapper's. I was paying the amount of child support that a rapper would pay. I know, I'm serious, bro.
What type of income did you have? Because they base it on income.
And so I would Google. I spent it was like a habit of me to Google the rappers and what they were paying for child support. And bro, I'm telling you, what I was paying a month kind of rivaled some of these rappers and what they were paying a month. And one time I had a woman ask me on the phone. I was like, well, Mr. Ankrum, what do you do? And I was like, well, why are you asking me that? And it was because this amount is crazy. And so, not to get into specifics as to how much it was, I was just happy to be in a position to where my daughter's life would be better if that money was being utilized the way that it should be utilized. But when you get a call 3 times a month, Daddy, I need this, Daddy, I need that, Daddy, I need this, Daddy, I need that. I'm like, what you need? What? Do you know how much money you get every month? What are you talking about you need? And so that's when the conversation started to be troubling for me, when the needs kind of outweighed, what was being given, and I didn't really understand that. And so I was able to conclude that, some of these women live outside their means. In terms of taking that money and feeling like I need to be in a deluxe apartment in the sky, as opposed to living the lifestyle that you can sustain. Because at some point, that whole child support thing is going to end. And so, like, how
I believe there's such thing as toxic femininity, but then when I listen to you and I listen to your story, see, it just sounds like bitching, right? It just sounds like men not wanting to pay their shit, right? I'm not saying that's right, because I've been in a similar situation. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I get now how people hear it in their ears, like, oh, these brothers just want to gripe about like having to pay their child support or their fair share, as if that doesn't have an effect on your self-concept, your feelings, and all that stuff. You're not supposed to feel anything. You're supposed to just pay it and shut up and go away. And then, like, listen, there's something we wouldn't want to always bring up, but someone in a situation like that might call you and taunt you with, thank you for the check I got this month. Look what I'm doing. I'm doing something with the money that's not necessarily giving it to the child.
And I didn't want to mention that. And that's where but I was going to roll back around when you accuse me of bitching. I'm not bitching. Because when you roll it back around and you start to get these phone calls like, hey, I just got a new car. Or, hey, I just got this. Or, hey, I just got that. Or whatever. And you pay for it, bruh. That's like salt in the wounds, because I drive a 2004 Prius.
Yeah, this is one. So listen, on Redefined, Renee said, yes, brother, come through. No one wants to address that hip hop genre, and the messages are being pushed out to the youth. Many of the messages are toxic, but the beat is fire. That's how they get us. LOL. Right. Finally, someone who wants to have the conversation about that we have never, especially as Gen Xers, people who grew up in Generation X, they cut their arm off before they talk about the negative influence of hip hop. I mean, listen, I actually didn't really talk about it, but what was the video where the dude took a credit card and swiped it down a girl's butt like she was an ATM or something?
That could be any video.
No, this was a very specific one. I want to say it was either T.I. or Ludacris, one of the ones, maybe even Nelly. But straight up took it like, a card reader.
And on this show, man, them folks from St. Louis, that's all they got. They ain't got no football team no more.
When my oldest son, I don't know if he's listening or watching, he came home with the Nelly CD when it was fresh out.
Yeah.
And he put it on, and I was like, I have failed you as a father. I failed you. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this sing-songy stuff is, but this sure as hell is not hip hop. This is singing. I don't know what this is, but
that's how I feel when my son makes me listen to Lil Uzi Vert.
See, I don't even know who that is. I'm not even gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. All that mumble, blah 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 blah.
But the beat is fire though. The beat is fire.
The beat is fire, but you don't know what they're saying because they just mumble. So I took a whole bunch of cough syrup and just I'm about to fall out and drink stuff.
Yo, we need to do an album. We need to do an album.
That I don't even know what that is, but it's not hip hop. It's actually definitely not music or whatnot. I don't think we can pierce through on this particular topic. I think it's important for us to bring it back as bring up the topic.
Whole hands and do a show with the whole hands and get everybody's perspective.
I just don't know what we can get out of it. Like if we're gonna have gender wars, if we're ever gonna be able to solve this issue of, like, I do know that I'm sick and tired of it being okay to talk about men and black men, black fathers or whatnot in the most negative light. And to address and attack things like their masculinity as being damn near inherently bad.
Yeah.
I do know I'm tired of that. I don't know where we go with it. But
that's a tough conversation. You know what? If we brought a black female feminist scholar on the show, I think it would pop.
Do you think feminism is good for the black community?
Not at all. Not at all.
Really? Do you want?
I don't even have to elaborate. You just look at my face. Not at all. That shit is terrible.
I've heard conflicting things. There are black women in the Black Power movement who saw it as a threat to the Black Power movement, and there are other ones who joined it as a movement. So it's almost like there was conflict about whether or not feminism is good for the black people. I don't know that was ever solved. I do know that white feminism and Black feminism aren't always the same thing.
Not at all. They have a different set of rules they play by. They got a different set of rules in which they research things and how they frame the paradigms in which they research things or whatever. Like they're able to frame their narratives for the things that most benefit them. And it's not necessarily a rudimental cause that's central. It's not a central cause. But if you're talking about Black feminism, then we got to talk about how we're going to select this vice president. Because you got a lot of folks from the California camp that feel like Harris is the person. And then you got a lot of folks from the South that feel like Stacey Abrams is the person. But they're two totally different people.
They are very different. Yes, Stacey Abrams would be a choice that would make me feel like I was ready to vote. Harris, as somebody who isn't Amy Klobuchar, maybe, right? Like if you told me it could be Amy Klobuchar or Harris, but Harris enjoyed putting Black people in jail. She even put parents in jail for truancy. So I don't know if you know about that whole situation.
Here's what I'm going to say. I do know about that. And here's what I'm going to say.
Toxic femininity. That's toxic femininity.
So. But if you think back to the shows that we've done on politics, right? Like I went after Harris. I'm taking a different stance now. And also I'm going to take the credit of I'm the only person on the podcast that said Joe would be the nominee, Joe Biden. I'm gonna go back and pull it. Don't worry about that.
I'm
gonna go back and pull it. I'm the only person that said that. You were like Amy Klobuchar or something.
No, I did not say that. I didn't even say that.
So
hold on one second, Michelle. I just want you to see this quote that's up here. To be honest, I don't think feminism is good for the Black community either. Michelle, why do you say that? Put it in the comments why you say that, because I think that isn't the, I want to say, controversial hot take right there. And redefined. Renee has a quote here. I think accountability is key. If we never have the conversations, can we ever hold people accountable? We don't talk about accountability much in our discussions and in our community. We oftentimes don't like the word because we feel like it's somehow patriarchal or racist or coming from some other place. But when we do it internally ourselves, how are we accountable to each other? I think we could start talking about the family overall rather than talk about female toxicity or male toxicity or whatever. We could talk about family dynamics. Sometimes family dynamics are good. Sometimes they're bad. But how are we going to be accountable to each other for doing our job? Michelle says that feminism, it destroys the family unit. Yet another hot take. These folks are full of hot takes today.
Yeah. So, but listen though, when you think about it, right? If a man is in his house and he feels demasculated.
Wow. I don't know what that is.
In terms of how he interacts with his wife.
Okay.
She makes him not feel like a man. It could be experiencing some things, could be experiencing unemployment, could be experiencing, health issues or whatever, right? Emasculate. I'm sorry.
I was about to say demasculate. I was like, damn, that feels.
But I'm pretty sure I can find demasculate too.
But
and so that's something that we don't talk about as well. But I think that plays into what she's talking about in terms of like the family unit being destroyed.
Vivette Dukes is on here and she says, I think this goes back to whether Black feminism and white feminism are the same thing. And she says they are not the same thing at all, period. She put a T at the end of period. And she also has a quote here. It can further emasculate the Black man. That becomes further destruction of the Black community. I love Vivette Dukes because this is something that she talks about a lot of times. Zakia, who's also often on our feed here, talks about it too from a perspective of loving Black men, right? Not letting us get taken for a ride. That to me is toxic, or not toxic. That to me is positive femininity in relationship to us, and we have to think of what's our positive masculinity back, into.
All right, so
to them.
real quick before these people come for me.
Yeah, yeah. Let's hear it.
Demasculate is a verb, and it means to remove the masculinity from someone. Just so y'all know, Ray knows.
So, you know, when we're going to wrap here soon, but that gets you into Hotep territory. Because on the one hand, we're talking about not calling everything we do toxic. And on the other end of the discussion, if we had someone like Dr. Umar on a conversation like this,
I'm not having a conversation with Dr. Umar on anything, period.
God bless him. But if he was on a conversation, he would be talking about the feminization of the black man. And there would be some territory to talk about. There'd be some things that you have to, I mean, I won't follow it. You know, I won't be there with them. But, you know, if you thought that there was a racist conspiracy to destroy the black man, and one of the ways to do that was to feminize the black man and make black masculinity unattainable or unattractive to possess, I can see where that would be a fair conversation too.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how you frame the conversation, depending on if you're having that conversation from a place of care, or if you're having that conversation from a self-absorbed place. And I feel like when he has these conversations from a place that's self-absorbed, and it's more so for the hot take than it is for the embedment of the community. Yeah, my opinion.
So I have friends who probably will be listening to this, and I'm going to tell a short story that kind of sums up some of this for me about where black women fall in their love for black men, right? So I had an event that I gave that was a private event where we hosted it in a different city than what I live in. And in that city, there was a black male who encourages other black males to get into education. And I invited him to come in for an hour to have a small panel of them, the brothers that he's working with in education, to talk to us about education in that city, like what they're working on. We had black women and black men from across the country from different cities, all in this event, short, small, private event. Some of the black women in that group, the moment that they were done, started asking about, well, y'all ain't got no women in your thing? You know, why are we going to sit up here and listen to this sexist nonsense, you know, and you can't even, there's no women educators in this city and blah, 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 whatever. They went on that train. Those are mostly East Coast females, by the way. We had one sister from Oakland who was like, I love my brothers. I don't.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, I don't know what y'all talking about. Like these brothers are dope. I support my brothers in education. Like I think this is a dope panel, and I love my brothers. She was by herself. She was from Oakland, which is a good thing to point out. But in that moment, I saw the differences between woke and old school family love. Right.
Damn, I wish you could call names, because a lot of people would agree that those people that were involved in that conversation are toxic as hell.
I mean, and they're people I love. I won't put this out there. If you're one of the people and you're watching this,
they toxic.
I love you. Like if you're one of the people who watch this and you were there, realize I'm not talking bad about you. I'm just talking about the dynamic that took place in that moment. These were educated black brothers who are spending every day trying to educate black children in their city and get more of them to come into education. And they came to speak to us because we were in their city. And the first takeaway you had was why are there all these men together, black men on a panel? And, you know, why aren't there any women and whatnot? Which we did have women on another panel later, but this was specifically for the brothers. And I just saw the difference in attitude. Like my sister from Oakland, just in that moment, I felt completely like she'll always have our back. No matter what, she'll always be with us. She'll have our back. But these other ones might get to college and start hanging out with some other people and come back with the language we just don't understand, you know, contribute to the hatred of us. All right. So we got 2 minutes. Everybody in the comments, put in your hottest take right now. Hottest take that you got right now. The thing that you would never say out loud, say it right now in the comments, and we're gonna read it. And I'm daring, folks. I'm daring you with your hottest take right now. Be brave. Put something in there right now, and we're gonna read it off. Ray, what's your hottest take as we try and get out of this?
Man, the fact that we're getting out of this. Yeah, we had a really good conversation about this. Hopefully we didn't lose anybody, and hopefully other people want to have these types of conversations so that we can move the culture forward.
I think if we were going to have this type of conversation, these sisters that came into the comments right now, Dia, Vivette, Renee, all of y'all together, Michelle, y'all might be instrumental to having this conversation in a way where we don't get hammered on it, where it's an honest conversation. We can talk about it, but we don't get hammered. All right. So that has been our show. We appreciate you, Ray. I appreciate you for jumping in here this way, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was a good show. Did you like it?
Yeah, man. You know, whenever we do what we do, man, you already know.
All right. Well, how can they get in touch with you, Ray? So everybody knows how to get in touch with somebody.
So, I'm on Twitter at Mr_Ankrum at A Black Hands. We broadcasting live every Sunday at 9:15 p.m.
That's Eastern time.
EST.
Yeah.
Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, we out here.
All right. I'm Chris Stewart, Citizen Stewart on Twitter. So you can reach me at Citizen Stewart on Twitter, or you can send me an email, Christopher@activist.com. Christopher@activist.com. Thank y'all. I appreciate you all and love that you gave us so much to think about. Peace.
Peace.